It is always game day in Cleveland. He's Daryl Ryder. I'm Andy Baskin. I got to tell you, I feel well rested on this podcast right now. Daryl, we've taken a little bit of time. For the first time in, the 2 years we've been doing this, we actually took like 2 or 3 days off from the podcast. So you look well rested, my friend. Are you ready to talk a little Browns football and what's going on?
Yeah, sure. In between Cavs games, we can do that.
All right. Sounds like a plan. Your hair looks way better than mine. Mine looks like crazy man that's been wearing headsets for the last 4 hours, and I look like a mad scientist, although I do have my scarlet on as we record this on Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day to you, Daryl.
Yeah, right back at you. And I thought you were wearing scarlet in honor of Ohio State firing Chris Holtmann on Valentine's.
Yeah, that's we could get into that, but I'll save that for the air, and I'm sure you
wrong podcast.
Yeah.
You got to listen to our sister podcast.
The Sons of the Shoe, where it's always Sons of the Shoe game day in Ohio.
I'm surprised they didn't name that It's Always Game Day in Columbus.
Yeah, but that would require I'm surprised they didn't say that. That's a good point. Because we have such a litany of great names we have for our podcast. Let's continue to give them to everybody else. That's a great idea. This is the original. I just want everyone to know that. We are the original.
We were the first.
Yeah, we were the guinea pigs.
And unfortunately, not the last.
All right, Daryl, I want to talk about, we can get to the Super Bowl at some point. We can get to the NFL honors, but what's been in the wheelhouse especially for this podcast is what's going on with the stadium. More people coming up to me, Daryl, especially after last week, with what's going on with the stadium. Are the Browns moving? Can we please get this notion that it is the end of the earth if the Browns actually move to Brook Park, which you literally could pick up a rock and throw into the city of Cleveland, as far as saying that you're moving the Browns if Brook Park is the possibility or the place they could go. So, Daryl, get us up to speed on what's going on there.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's only a handful of teams that actually play in their actual cities. I mean, suburban stadium locations is commonplace in the NFL. And yes,
like 12, isn't there? Like 12?
Brook Park is technically a suburb of Cleveland, but at one point that land where the old Ford plant was across from Cleveland Hopkins International Airport, that used to be City of Cleveland land. And way back in the day, City of Cleveland and Brook Park swapped land. Cleveland got the IX Center and Brook Park got the Ford plant. So, look, this is, I think that there's a lot of layers to this whole situation. First of all, they've not bought the land yet. Okay. Number one. Number two, they're dotting the T's, crossing the I's on a purchase agreement, which basically, look, purchase agreements at times can be worth nothing more than the paper that they're written on. I mean, the purchase agreements happen all the time and they fall through all the time. So
is it basically an intent to buy without having to be
without actually buying the land? So, I think this year we will know what the Browns plan to do come 2029 as far as where they're going to play. Are they going to play in a dome in Brook Park, or are they going to keep playing down by the lakefront? I have a feeling we're going to know by the end of the year because they have to know. One of the problems, or I should say challenges right now, when you talk about putting funding together, is that there is no concrete plan. The Browns have not made a decision. They've not been able to come to terms with the city of Cleveland on extending the lease and the renovations that they would like to see happen to Cleveland Browns Stadium, which, by the way, we've talked at length about, are going to cost between $1 and $1.2 billion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what the Browns are doing is, and we've talked about this on the air, and I've written about this, what they're doing is they're creating a plan B. Because right now, as we talk, it doesn't look like the renovation's moving forward. And the reason why I say that is because they haven't come to terms with the city of Cleveland. Like it hasn't happened yet, right? And so you have posturing on both sides, from the Browns standpoint, from the city standpoint, right? The challenge, too, is that stadium's owned by the city. And when you look at the people that actually use the stadium, it's not a lot of people from the city of Cleveland. It's all the people from the suburbs that come into Cleveland to use the stadium. Mm-hmm. So that's the other aspect of this, that they want to make this a regional type of agreement. And that's challenging when you're talking about a building that's not owned by the region, it's owned by a municipality, right? So there's that tentacle to it. There's the tentacle that yeah, the Browns have to find an alternate plan. If things aren't moving forward with the stadium, right? They have to find a plan B. Well, guess what? They now have a plan B, and that is they can build a dome in Brook Park. Now the questions become, okay, we have a renovation plan in one hand that's going to cost $1 to $1.2 billion to stay on the lakefront. Now we have plan B, which is to buy some land across from Hopkins Airport and the Norfolk Southern Railroad tracks in Brook Park on the site of the old Ford plant, 176 acres, where we can build a dome and we can build a Brownstown, so to speak, hotels and shops and all that kind of thing, right? And control the parking and things like that, and reap benefits that, quite frankly, they don't have right now with First Energy Stadium. And we know just by, some of the things that the Browns have done in recent years, one of their goals is they would like to control more parking. Right now, the city of Cleveland controls the parking, the Muni lot, the lots around the stadium. Those are not owned by the Cleveland Browns. So, and then the lakefront development project that the city's trying to put together, which kind of, in my view, chokes the stadium off even further. The only way to get to the stadium is on foot, unless you're there before 10 a.m. on a 1 p.m. kickoff game day. It's very hard to get a vehicle down to the lakefront.
And then there's only there's only one lane to get in too.
Yeah, like that's terrible planning. It's awful. Mm-hmm. So, they wouldn't have that problem in Brook Park. There's also the accessibility thing that I was getting into there for a moment. You've got I-480, I-71, and State Route 237.
And the turnpike is right down the street.
Right. So 237 is probably going to get completely rebuilt when they redo Hopkins Airport, because the city of Cleveland is also working on another multi-billion-dollar project, price tag $3 billion, that's with a B, to rebuild Hopkins. All the terminals, the infrastructure, the access, transportation hubs, everything. Okay?
You could have $6 billion invested into that airport area when it's all said and done.
100%. Okay. So there are so many layers to this thing right now that it's not just black and white. The Browns are doing one or the other. Like, it's not definitive that they're going to build a dome in Brook Park, but they're exploring the option right now. So I think folks need to slow their roll, but also understand the Browns are doing the smart thing right now by cultivating options for themselves. And most importantly, stop saying this is as bad as Art Modell.
It's ridiculous. Anytime I hear that, I laugh. I just laugh.
It's the dumbest low-hanging fruit that makes no sense whatsoever. The team is not leaving Northeast Ohio. The Haslams have made that very clear. In fact, when the Haslams bought the team, it was in the fine print with the Lerner Family Trust that they could not relocate the franchise. Okay. The team is not going anywhere. They're still going to be the Cleveland Browns, whether they play on the lakefront or they play across from the city line in Brook Park, across from the airport. The other thing too is for the conspiracy theorists, I guess conspiracy theorists is the wrong way to put it, but for the folks to say, oh, they can't build next to an airport. You can't build stadiums next to an airport. Two things.
Really?
One, yes, you can. It gets done all the time. Just look at Los Angeles, and I realized they built that in the ground, so to speak. But also, too, where they would put the stadium is nowhere near any runway as far as a flight path goes. Okay.
Daryl, can I say it? Can I say the reality? Cleveland Browns Stadium right now, where they play, is at the end of a runway. It is at the end of a runway right now. When the commissioner left after the Jets game, I watched that plane take off, and it could not have been more than 3 football fields away. It was basically just flying over the lake, where the lake starts on the north side of the stadium. You've got to be kidding me. Like, I don't want to hear the FAA stuff on this. Cleveland Browns Stadium is at the end of a runway. Please stop.
I guess technically it's not because the runway is angled out toward the lake, but your point is made that yes, there's an airport on the other side of North Coast Harbor of Cleveland Browns Stadium. So this can be done. Now, again, the challenge: who pays for the dome? How do they pay for it? Right?
True.
Who's this? Do the Cleveland Browns actually buy that land? Is it a subsidiary affiliated with the Cleveland Browns,
Maybe
or
they do a land swap back. Daryl, we have
or are they doing a business agreement with another company to do? You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
There's a lot of detail right now about this, and I spoke to a couple of sources about just the purchase agreement in and of itself.
Hang on to that thought, Daryl, because we're going to come right back, and you're going to tell us what sneak inside information you have about a new Browns stadium. It's always game day in Cleveland. All right, when we last left, it's always game day in Cleveland. Daryl Ryder was about to give us some inside scoop on what's going on with the new Browns stadium. Daryl, fire away.
I lost my train of thought.
You said I talked to some insiders. That was the last thing you said.
And what was I saying before that?
That you had some like little bit of tidbit information that maybe hasn't been out there yet.
I really did lose my train of thought.
Well, that's okay. The new site in Brook Park has train tracks, so you can just jump right on there.
Yeah. Look. As far as like the purchase agreement and stuff like that. Like, I was talking about how the Browns may not actually be the entity that's buying the land. Like there could be, that possibility as well. But like people just got to kind of like slow their roll as far as like the definitive talk that they're absolutely leaving the lakefront. They're going to Brook Park. They're going to build it up. They got to find a way to pay for all this as well. I mean, the challenge is if you can't find a way to pay for $1 billion renovation to Cleveland Browns Stadium, how are you going to find $2 to $2.5 billion to build a dome? Now, a couple of things. One, the roof will not move. If the Browns build a dome, it's going to be a dome. It will not be. I can tell you definitively, it will not have a retractable roof on it. Because that adds another $750 million to $1 billion to that price tag. So definitively, I can tell you if the Browns, in fact, do build a dome in Brook Park, it's not going to have a movable roof.
All right, this has been It's Always Game Day in Cleveland. He's Daryl Ryder. I'm Andy Baskin. I never want to talk to you again. Put a retractable roof on this thing if you can.
Well, again, they're trying to come up with $2 to $2.5 billion to figure out if they do the dome, how to pay for it. And now you want them to spend another $750 to $1 billion on top of that. It's not, I don't know that that's feasible. I agree with you. Like I would totally do a retractable roof. Absolutely. I'd do curtain walls of glass. I would do the sliding field out on a tray so they can play on grass and I'd do all of it. But there is the reality. Again, they are struggling to find a way to pay for a $1 billion renovation to the current stadium they live. Look, here's the other thing, too. It's going to be a dome. They're not going to build another open-air stadium because that would be stupid. They're not going to pay twice the price to build yet another open-air stadium that solves none of their problems.
Correct.
The problem that they have and that they're going to find out real quick this fall when Billy Joel comes in and they destroy the field. I don't care how much protection you put down. You're going to destroy the grass.
By the way, remind me because I got to ask you a question about that when Billy Joel comes in. But keep going.
The field's going to be garbage this year. And the Browns have like the absolute best groundskeepers in the National Football League. They are the best of the best at what they do. But there's only so much you can do with the time. Remember a couple years ago, I think it was the Machine Gun Kelly concert. Mm-hmm. They had 6 or 7 days before a preseason game. And that field was trash. It was a horse track after one preseason game because the reality is no matter how good your groundskeepers are, you need 2 weeks for a field to grow in. When you put fresh sod down, it takes 2 weeks. Like, for instance, I was really surprised, in Vegas watching the Super Bowl. It was real good. They put that turf and sod, they put that down about a month before the Super Bowl and had the tray outside the stadium to grow it, et cetera, et cetera. Here's the other thing. There is technology. The Browns could play in a dome and still play on grass.
Yes.
We see the European stadiums all the time have this, and this is kind of part of the benefit.
Hey, guess what? Atlanta's putting grass in for the World Cup.
Right. But the stadiums in Europe have now, and I forget which one it was, I quote tweeted it, but the field folds up in trays, and the trays have the grass growing lights and the irrigation system and everything, so that while it's being stored and other events are taking place on the stadium floor.
Yeah, Arizona has that too.
No, Arizona's a tray. Arizona's just slides out the stadium.
Wait, so what are you saying? What's the difference here? That it folds?
This thing folds up and stacks up and then goes under the stadium in pieces, the entire field. And there's growing lights and irrigation and everything. They can grow grass on trays in Europe. Okay.
Wow.
And then they press a button and the thing comes out and it unfolds and spreads out and fills it. It's incredible technology. Okay. But it's probably expensive.
Sure.
So the tray option seems to be, if they want to play on grass, the tray option seems to be the best because that thing just slides out.
What's Vegas? I was trying to figure out what Vegas was when we were watching the Super Bowl.
Tray. Vegas's field is on a tray.
Okay.
And I was really surprised because as I was watching the Usher halftime concert and seeing like all the dancers and fake fans on the field and stuff like that. I'm sorry, fans, not fake.
No, they're fake
fans.
That's one of my least favorite parts of the Super Bowl.
I know.
I gotta stand and yell.
I'm watching the field because I'm like, they're gonna destroy this field at halftime. There's no way this field holds up because they've had some problems with that in Vegas with the Raiders. I mean, my God, toward the end of the season, that field in that stadium was horrible. I mean, it reminded me of the old Cleveland stadium where the grounds crew would break out the Kansas green spray paint and start painting over all the brown spots. But the field held up incredibly well for the Super Bowl, so that was good. But yeah, there's technology to do a lot of stuff. The issue is paying for it. So it's easy for you and I, it's easy for you to say, hey, yeah, if you're going to build a dome, build it retractable roof. Okay, that's fine. But, they can't even find the money to renovate the existing stadium. They're trying to figure out, okay, if we build our own dome and do it ourselves, how are we going to do that? And there have already been meetings. Look, I mean, I'll tell you this: the Browns have already, the firm that they hired to do the First Energy or the Cleveland Browns Stadium renovation, to kind of put that together to present to the city. That firm is working on plans for a potential dome right now. You've
got sources that are telling you they're working on potential.
They're working on the concepts of what would it look like and things like that, so that they can come up with some actual hard numbers, hard construction costs. All right, they have the hard construction costs for the stadium, but for the dome, they're working on that kind of stuff. But that, and again, it's part of this process. If you're going to put together a purchase agreement, wouldn't you want to have a concept of what you do with that land? Right.
Yeah.
So that's what they're doing right now. And so, as part of this process, they're getting all those type of things together. And, we're not at a point where they have anything to propose or to put out there. But, they are, putting their options together. So as long as, you're working on this plan B per se, which is exactly what the Browns are doing, you have to formulate, okay, well, if we go through with this, what are we going to put on it? And the clock is ticking. Like, they have to begin construction for the dome sometime in 2026, early 2026. Stadium construction would have to be at the beginning of 2027. So for a 2-year project, like as soon as the 2026 season is over, you start construction on the stadium renovation there. So like there are hard timelines involved here too.
Right. Yeah.
And then of course the commissioner was in town in December.
And
I don't want to say it was a come to Jesus meeting.
Well, okay. What was it?
But I would just say that the commissioner.
Wait, do you have details from this meeting? Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah.
All right. If you want to find out the details from this meeting, you need to stick around for the next segment of It's Always Game Day in Cleveland. He's Daryl Ryder. I'm Andy Baskin. All right, Daryl, you got some dirty scoop for us right now. Kind of pumped. I do want to say one thing before you give me the scoop about the commissioners meeting. You said something in the last segment about 2 weeks to get the grass to grow after a concert. Does that not make you think that the Browns are going to Brazil day 2 of the
No,
NFL season?
no, because week 1 kicks off after Labor Day. Okay.
Okay.
Which this year I believe is September 8th. That week is September 8th. So the
Okay.
Brazil game I believe is September 6th, if I'm doing the math on my
So
calendar.
you're saying the first game of the NFL season is September 5.
Well, no, I don't think that the Brazil is the kickoff game though.
I think it's the second game of the season. The
Right.
kickoff game is
The
Thursday.
Thursday night-
Brazil is Friday.
Thursday the 5th is the kickoff game. Brazil is the 6th, and then everyone else plays on the 8th. Okay. So I don't think I think that there's a chance. Yes, there's a chance the Browns could end up in Brazil to kick the season off. But if that happens, they're going to open the season with 2 straight road games and maybe 3 straight road games. And I don't see that happening. So I think what's going to happen is the Browns will open at home September 8th, be done. As soon as that game is over, they'll begin the work to bring in the setup for the Billy Joel Rod Stewart concert. Okay, because that'll take place Friday night, September 13th. They will not play at home on September.
Right, so hang on, Daryl. Just so you know, the game in Brazil is Friday, September 6th.
Right, which is what I said.
Okay, just double checking. Okay, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Okay.
And so this is the challenge now. Because if they had a dome right now, they could have the Billy Joel concert Friday night, and then they could go ahead and play on Sunday. You know, the commissioner kind of just laid it out for people.
So, all right. So right now, so what happened in that commissioner's meeting?
Basically, my understanding of the conversation was just basically, look, that the Haslams are willing to commit hundreds of millions of dollars to renovate the existing stadium. They're willing to commit even more to build a new stadium. Y'all need to get it together and figure it out.
Right.
And remember, Goodell was the pseudo architect of the return of the Browns, as an expansion team.
Right.
Which, as we know, that did not go well.
No. So far, he was pretty much 0 for 2. The rostering and
the ownership
and stadium. I mean, a lot of sloppy moves in that.
Right. Group. And a lot of that was advanced because of a compressed timeline.
Right.
To get the franchise up and running, to get the old stadium torn down and a new stadium put in its place. And unfortunately, when that building opened, we've talked about this, it was obsolete the day it opened its doors.
Yeah.
And so, and that's why the price tag to do what is required to bring that building up to where it needs to be competitive for more major events. That's why the price tag is so hefty. Because you're on the back end paying the price for not building the stadium correctly the first time, I should say.
True.
So the commissioner basically, laid it out, and they talked about the pros and cons of staying in the existing building and renovating it. They talked about the pros and cons of building a new stadium. As we talk right now, I just don't think that there's a viable site in the city of Cleveland, and I can tell you with absolute certainty, the Cleveland Browns definitely explored alternate stadium sites within the city of Cleveland limits. They did. And as it turns out, it looks like that this Brook Park location, which is right by the airport, by 3 major freeways, that appears to be the best spot. If, keyword if, they were to leave the lakefront, that's where it would go. And if they were to leave a lakefront, it would need to be a dome, because it makes no sense to do what Buffalo's doing, and that is go from one open-air stadium right back into another. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
even with shielded seats.
Right. And Buffalo is doing the soccer style, like the European soccer style. Or actually here, what was it? What they call the Cowboy Stadium, the old one? It had the hole in the roof.
Yeah, so God can watch the game on Sundays.
I forget.
Did you ever hear that? That's what Cowboy fans say. Oh, they put a little hole in there so God can watch the game on Sundays.
Right. I forget what that stadium name was called, but
Cowboy Stadium.
Was that what it was called? Cowboy Stadium? Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
That was before the era of corporate naming rights ownership and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so that's kind of like what the Bills are doing. And it just doesn't make sense for the Browns to do something like that. So, because you're not, other than maybe having a 360 concourse in the clubs, you're not getting a Final Four. You're not going to get a Super Bowl. And these are things too that you think about. If they build this, it's no guarantee you get a Super Bowl, but I bet you get a Final Four. I bet you get a college football playoff game. I bet you get a college bowl game. I bet you can invite Ohio State up here. Remember, what was it? Wisconsin and Toledo, I think, played at Brown Stadium a few years ago. So the Haslams are anxious to bring more events. They've had U.S. men's and U.S. women's soccer play at Brown Stadium, the CONCACAF Cup or whatever that is. They've had that at the stadium and things so they have tried to bring additional events, but they want to create.
Guess what? You could bid on a combine.
Yeah.
There's all you have to do is look at Indianapolis and look what they have for their dates.
Right.
And say, hey, we could host every one of those.
Basically,
if it was here.
Imagine Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse on steroids.
Yeah.
Like that's what you're trying to create. So there's first of all, in summary, there's nothing definitive right now. Everything right now is all about them exploring their options, which is business 101. There's nothing wrong. I just don't get the anger people have at the Browns right now. There's nothing wrong with what the Browns are doing right now. Okay. Now, if they ultimately decide to go to Brook Park and build on that site and whatever, and you want to be mad because you live on the east side and there's no freeways on your side of town and it's going to take you forever to get to that side of town, well, okay, I understand your frustration. I live on the west side. I got 3 freeways within 5 minutes of my house. I'm not going to lie. I'd love a stadium in Brook Park. It's a stone's throw from my front porch. It doesn't matter to me where they.
You could sell parking,
right? Well, I don't know about that. My yard's not big enough, but the team is not going anywhere. It's still staying here. Okay, this isn't Art Modell 2.0. The Haslams are not bad people. Okay, they're still talking with the city of Cleveland. The relationship with the city of Cleveland is not a toilet because they're exploring a secondary option. It's like buying a house, right? You're going around or looking for a place to live, right? You decide, okay, do I want to buy something new or do I want to rent? Okay. Mm-hmm. What can I afford to do? All right. Now, where do I want to do that? Once I make the decision between buying and renting, then it's okay. Now, where do I live? What are the taxes going to look like? What are the costs going to, look like? Is it a fixer upper? Am I going to have to sink money? It's a similar situation. And it's the same thing that businesses go through. If do I have enough space for all my employees? Okay. Is there parking? Are there services? Can they go get lunch somewhere? Whatever,
right.
All that kind of stuff. Right. So, the goal for this is to be a public-private partnership. The Haslams are not looking for a 100% handout. They're willing to foot the bill for some of this. And I'll tell you right now, they've already foot a bill. Architects are not cheap. Engineers are not cheap. And lawyers are not cheap. In fact, lawyers are the most expensive thing out there. There are 2 things our boss and any boss never wants to hear. Billable hours, ever. Never want to hear that, right? And so, the Haslams have already, between coming up with renovation plans to present to the city and the county and the state and all that, between coming up with an entire lakefront development plan. Remember that in 2000?
Oh, yeah.
And the city of Cleveland was like, yeah, thanks for that, but we'll just, go ahead and do our own thing, because we're the city of Cleveland. We know better, right?
Right.
The Haslams started them at the 30-yard line and they decided to take the ball at the 1. That's
I thought they wanted to be in the end zone.
So, they've got to figure all this out. And it's going to take time. So, there's going to be some progress made here in the coming months. But I'm telling you, by the end of next football season, I have a feeling we're going to know what the Browns want to do and plan to do. Because, quite frankly, they got to get it figured out. And so everything that they've done in recent weeks and months is all about figuring this out.
All right, he's Daryl Ryder. I'm Andy Baskin for our amazing producer, Meredith Kane. It's always game day in Cleveland. We love the fact you're hanging with us here during the off season. We might be a little bit more sporadic on when we're dropping podcasts, but we do appreciate you. I've got some great notes and some people have said some fantastic things about the podcast. We really do appreciate everybody that watches and listens to us and and checks us out on YouTube or listening to us on the Odyssey app. Daryl, final word?
Stay tuned. That's the final word, because there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen here in 2024 about the future of the Cleveland Browns and where they're going to play football.
And there you have it. It's always game day in Cleveland.